I've listened to a lot of survivors who are now thriving tell their story. And one thing that stood out to me, well, it stood out to me in the people that I have found and listened to. I'm sure there's thousands of people out there who are telling their story of surviving relational trauma. But one thing I noticed is that all of the people who I listened to always had someone in their life who could see them. They might have been in a dysfunctional family, but had a friend at school who they could rely on to have their back and they could talk to. Or they were in a dysfunctional family, but now they have a boyfriend or a husband who's wonderful and has really shown them what unconditional love and support can be like. Obviously, it's not the case for everybody, but in the people that I have found and listened to over the years in researching relational trauma, I've definitely noticed that there's always been somebody that's shown up in their childhood or in their adult life or in their teen life who could see them and who they could speak to and rely on, who was a safe person. I didn't have that. So I just wanted to speak to the people out there who had and maybe have no one. When I was growing up in a dysfunctional family, there was no adult. I didn't have any friend who could see me. I didn't have any safe space. I didn't have anywhere that I could turn to. I had to deal with everything that I was going through with whatever childish capacity I had at the time. There was literally no safe person. There was no one who had my back. You know what I realized is throughout my entire childhood, and even now in my adult life, no one in my family or connected to my family has ever asked me, are you okay? I was in a situation where people witnessed my abuse and either felt like, oh, well, I was treated that way, so too bad, you get that treatment too, or they felt like perhaps I deserved it, or they just felt like, oh, you know what, you'll grow out of it. Or the most common is they turned a blind eye because people tend to choose social order and their own sense of comfort over doing the right thing in general. That was what my childhood was like, is having absolutely no one. And even now, within my family as an adult, it's the same thing. There is literally no one within my family who is willing to break the legacy of abuse, who's willing to tell the truth. Basically, there's no one who's willing to be honest and say this was wrong, or even acknowledge that anything happened. Um, and I'm not mad about that anymore. I should let me correct that. I'm not mad about what happened anymore, but it does still irritate me that they pretend and I'm expected to pretend like nothing happened. And I'm not the only person in my family that had it rough. It's a dysfunctional family. And I just wanted to speak to people out there who've had childhoods where they have had nobody and who have grown into an adult life where their relationships have been really transient. You might have had friends in high school, but their relationships weren't lasting. You might have met people at work, but again, the relationships for some reason or other might have dissolved. I'm speaking to you. I hear you. I know what it's like to literally have nobody who sees you, nobody who cares if you're okay. And frustratingly for me personally, people tend to see me as this really strong person who doesn't need anybody, who's super authentic and real and has just got this. I literally get no support unless I ask for it. Sometimes when I hear these stories about people who've had a really rough childhood or a really rough marriage, or just generally at whatever stage of life they're in, having a difficult time, it just occurs to me that many of them that I hear about have met somebody or had somebody that they could turn to, that they could count on, and that they could see who they really were. And I didn't have that, and I have never had that. The only person that I realized as I got older and I started to study these dynamics, started to study human dynamics first, and then started to really get into relational trauma, I started to see that having support, even if it's just one person, makes a huge difference. And seeing the effects going forward when people had that support, how that transformed their lives and helped them move forward in positive ways that a person who's received no support wouldn't be able to, because support allows you to see the options that are available to you. It allows somebody who supports you reflects back to you the good that you might have in life and the good options that you might have. When you don't have that, you really have to work in supporting yourself. In particular, if you've come from a childhood where you were born into an environment that was quite toxic, it's the water you're swimming in. You really have nothing else to compare it to. So it's really takes a gargantuan shift in consciousness to recognize what happened, to make sense of it, and then be there for yourself enough to change the trajectory of your life and recognize that you don't have to live the way you've been living and you have options. And not only do you have options on how you want to be and how you want to show up in your life, you literally can design your life. You can design who you want to be as a person and step into that. If you're the type of person who had no one and has no one now, I get that. I see you. This is a community, or I don't have a community yet. I just started my YouTube channel. This is something that I truly get in my core. I understand how it feels to have nobody. I understand the fear of being nothing to no one. So you accept crumbs and minimize yourself, so at least you'll be included somewhere. I know that pain. This is something that is near and dear to my heart, just because it has been such an overarching aspect of my experience of being the scapegoated child, of being the one who's blamed. It's almost, or it's not almost, it is as if that's my comfort zone. Being the one who's wrong, minimizing myself, not setting boundaries is where I feel most comfortable, because I had to do that in order to survive, in order to be cared for as a little one. Hi, I'm new to editing video or even filming myself and taking video. So I just wanted to add this piece on so that you can see that I do have a top to my head. It does exist. I've learned to have compassion for myself and forgive myself and understand that it really couldn't have been any other way. My life events in the course of my life could not have turned out any other way. So as much as I might look back and feel regret or even shame and anger at myself for decisions I've made or things that I've accepted that I shouldn't have accepted, eventually I came to the realization that I couldn't have done anything differently. There's literally no other way. The abuse that I suffered and the cascade of dominoes that came after that were not my fault. But it is my responsibility now to step into and create the life that I want. And that's basically what I've done and continue to do. And I want to build a community of other people who are interested in breaking the ties that bind, looking at where they've been hurt instead of looking away. Because when you've been hurt in the way that we have, you spend a lifetime in distraction and looking away. But I want to build a community of people who are willing to turn towards themselves and break those bonds and step into a life of their own design and their own making and create the person that they want to be and thrive.